Welcome to the Fighting on Film podcast, the podcast all about classic and obscure war movies, from the Normandy landings to the days of chivalry and swords. If it's been captured on film, we're going to try and cover it. I'm Robbie of RM Military History.
I'm Matthew Moss of Historical Firearms and the Armourer's Bench. Hello and welcome back to Fighting on Film. This week you join us as we embark on Flyboys.
Hooray!
A James Franco picture which tells a hybrid story of some Lafayette Escadrille pilots. But we'll come to we'll caveat of that in a moment. But essentially, it's American pilots during the First World War in France around 1916, and we follow a new batch of recruits that join the squadron, and we follow their characters as they become seasoned pilots. Some of them are killed. It's a classic story of attrition within a squadron, set in that classic World War One setting.
It pulls from like Aces High. It pulls from Wings.
Yes, exactly.
A lot of stuff's going on.
So, without further ado, do you want to do cast?
Yeah,
we'll
sure
jump
thing.
Into production.
So this movie's led by James Franco. Now, you probably know Franco from his more comedic roles, but he made his name playing Daniel Desario in the 1999 series Freaks and Geeks. He then wins a Golden Globe in 2001 for playing James Dean in a TV film of the same name, and he's an absolute spit of James Dean. In 2002, he played Harry Osborn in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films and the subsequent sequels and threequels to that one. And then later on, he got an Oscar nomination for his lead role in 2010's 127 Hours, the one where he cut off his hand in that ravine. And then up until 2021, he was a frequent collaborator with Seth Rogen. It includes Pineapple Express, This Is the End, The Interview, and the 2017's Disaster Artist, for which he won his second Golden Globe. So I think he's more known for kind of like these days being in more independent pictures, I think. But he's done it all, really, I think, James Franco.
Yeah. He's in The Greatest Raid as well, wasn't he?
He was as well. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. He's not my favourite actor, I must admit. But he's... we'll get onto it later. I just caveat quickly. I don't enjoy this movie, chat, folks. I really don't. But I'm gonna steam through it. Secondly, we have Martin Henderson played Reed Cassidy. Now, he's based upon Raoul Lufbery, who was a real flying ace who served with the Lafayette Escadrille in the Great War. Martin Henderson himself is a New Zealand actor. He had an early role in 2002's Wind Talkers. He also starred in the 2002 horror The Ring. Then later he had stints on like major US network TV, including an AFI award nomination for his role as a man who suffered a chronic illness in a 2009 episode of House called Painless. He then played Dr. Nathan Riggs in Grey's Anatomy from 2015 to 2017. Then we have Jean Reno, who plays George Thenault, who's the commander of the Lafayette Escadrille, as he was in the Great War as well. Featured last week, if you listened to our review of Ronin, but I'll do a quick overview of his career again for people who haven't. So he rose to international fame in 1994, playing Leon in the film called Leon the Professional, and then he was in Godzilla in 1998, Ronin in the same year, Hotel Rwanda in 2005, The Da Vinci Code. He also voiced Mufasa in the French dub of The Lion King. And more recent role saw him play a French businessman in Spike Lee's 2020 Vietnam War hybrid The Five Bloods. Really recognizable face. I always think, along with Gerard Depardieu, he's probably the most famous French actor outside of France to Western audiences.
I totally, yeah.
Go out on a limb and say that. Then we have Jennifer Decker, another French actress. She plays Lucine, who's Rawlings' love interest. I think Flyboys was the biggest role that Western audiences would know her for. But she appears in lots of French film and TV roles, including 2007's French horror film Hellphone, a French romance film called Lulu and Jimmy, And then more recently, she'd starred in a 2022 French police procedural drama called Syndrome E, which seems to be getting good reviews over in France. Then we have Abdul Salis, who plays Eugene Skinner. Now he's based on an African-American fighter pilot called Eugene Bullard, who, quite famous being one of the few black pilots in the First World War. So he's a British actor, and he's probably best known to British audiences for his role as Curtis Cooper in Casualty from 2003 to 2009. He played Tony in Love Actually, I think. Isn't that the character's friend who goes over to America? Isn't he the guy's mate in that? Very small role
In Love Actually.
In Love Actually, yeah.
I don't know.
I think he might be.
I'll be honest. I'm not the one for that question.
Oh, fair enough. I watch it every other Christmas. I should know. In 2005, he played Omar in the film Sahara with Matthew McConaughey, and he also has had lots of.
All right.
Yeah, all right. He's had TV roles over here in the UK in The Bill, Doctor Who, Outnumbered. I think he played a small role in 2 episodes of EastEnders in 2019. More recently, he's been in Catherine Tate's Netflix comedy called Hard Sell, and he has had a role in Amazon's fantasy series The Wheel of Time. Really accomplished British character actor. Then we have Philip Winchester playing William Jensen, another one of the pilots. His earliest role is as a militiaman in 1998's The Patriot, and he goes on to do a lot of American TV and film work. He played Scott Tracy in the 2004 Thunderbirds remake, which I'd wiped from my memory because I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's shocking. His biggest TV role to date is probably playing Peter Stone in Chicago PD, and then later he reprises the role in different versions of Chicago PD, and then he reprises the role again in a Law and Order Special Victims Unit, which I think he's still playing.
So many of those shows are linked
the
together.
Same thing in the different universe, but the same town or city. It confuses me. I used to like NCIS, if that's a similar type of thing. But Winchester's,
I think it is, yeah.
I think it is, yeah. Winchester's only other military role is in 2020's Rogue, where he plays a mercenary alongside Megan Fox, which looked interesting.
All right. Mech Month 3 coming in hot. Nice.
Month 3, we keep threatening it. We'll do it. If you guys don't stop us, we'll do it.
Yeah, if you stop listening, we will do it.
Yeah. Then we have Tyler Labine, who plays Briggs Lowry. He's the son of a wealthy businessman in America, and he wants to go and prove himself to his father. Tyler's a Canadian actor who's featured on a lot of American and Canadian TV and films. Again, early role is in the teen drama Breaker High from 1997 to 98. He played Dale in the cult 2010 horror film Tucker and Dale versus Evil. He also features in 2011's Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which also features James Franco in the lead of that one. And then he also played at the moment, I think it's a few months ago it ceased, but he was playing Dr. Frome on the US medical drama New Amsterdam that ran for 5 seasons from 2017 to 2023. Then we have David Ellison as Eddie Beagle. He's the character that's like a small-time crook. And spoilers, they accuse him of being a German spy, but it turns out he's not a spy. He's just covering for the fact that he's a thief back in America.
Robbed a bank with a toy gun.
Yeah. He's an American actor, but he's actually probably more well-known as the founder and CEO of Skydance Media, which is the production company that don't encroach on Matt's production notes. But they're a production company that were founded in 2006 by Ellison, and the first film they worked on was Flyboys. And he also served as an uncredited executive producer on the film. His other acting roles include small parts in a made-for-TV movie called Blank Slate and a film called Hole in One, which is a 2009 golf comedy. But he's also acted as a producer on some big war movies in the last few years, including 2021's The Tomorrow War, Top Gun Maverick, and more recently, The Greatest Beer Run Ever.
Is Tomorrow War the one with Chris Pratt?
It is, yeah.
Oh my God, okay.
That was interesting, that film.
Oof.
Yeah.
Oof.
And then rounding out the cast, the last couple of people here, we have Tim Pigott-Smith in a very, very small cameo as Mr. Lowry, Briggs's father. There's a scene where he sees him off at a dock in New York. And Tim was known for lots of British TV and film again, but he was in 1979 Aces High. He later appeared as Major Rose in 1981's Escape to Victory. He was in the 2002 remake of The Four Feathers. His TV roles include parts in Danger UXB in 1979. He was in a Foyle's War episode. And he also narrated the first series of the 1994 documentary Battlefield, if you remember that.
I do. I remember watching that on the
Yeah,
History Channel, or was it Discovery? One of the two.
History Channel or
Yeah,
Discovery.
it was
Yeah,
good.
but
Yeah. Back when
Tim
the History
Peter-Smith.
Channel was good.
Oh yeah, hashtag make History Channel great again. And
Hmm.
then rounding out the cast, we have Gunnar Winberg as the Black Falcon, the sort of the film's version of the Red Baron. And he's a
Yeah.
Swedish actor. And he's a Swedish actor, and whose only credits I could find include this film, a role in Danny Boyle's film Millions, and then a role as a Luftwaffe pilot in Dan Snow's Battlefield Britain from 2004.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So that's your cast, really. And I think it's a shame because everyone else, apart from James Franco, doesn't have a lot to do. I don't think,
Hmm.
really. They sort of just facilitate James Franco's lead role.
Yeah, and he's the most boring character.
And he is genuinely the most boring character in it. But
Yeah.
more on that later because
Well,
we'll get there.
before we get into that, let's run over the production side of things.
Mm.
So, directed by Tony Bill, an actor, director, producer, lots of TV credits from the 60s onwards. Directed mostly TV movies before and after this. It was produced by Dean Devlin, who's probably best known for a spate of huge 90s movies, including Universal Soldier. Not that one,
Not that
the
one.
better one.
The better one.
Yeah. Yeah. Stargate, Independence Day 1 and 2, The Patriot, and Eight-Legged Freaks, which is
Wow.
I like that film. I'll be
Oh
honest.
God,
I was
no.
thinking this the other day. I hadn't seen it in years, but
It made me terrified of
those.
spiders when I was little.
I know. Not as bad as was it Arachnophobia with
Oh yeah.
is it Pierce Brosnan in that? I don't know. Anyway, that's a tangent. Cinematography was handled by Henry Braham, who was the director of photography on Land Girls in 1998, Shackleton in 2002, The Golden Compass, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 in 2017, Suicide Squad in 2021. So he's done some big films.
Yeah, yeah.
And this was actually one of the very first films to be shot on Panavision's Genesis camera, which gives
Ooh.
it that crisp look, which is obviously interspliced with a lot of the special effects, which
Yeah.
this film has a lot of, as you would expect. So a lot of like matte backgrounds, CG environments, animation, and aircraft stuff, obviously. And that was all handled by Double Negative, a very, very famous visual effects company with an incredible list of credits behind them. Some of their war-orientated movies include Enemy at the Gates, Captain Corelli's Mandolin, Children of Men, Atonement, Battleship, World War Z, Dunkirk, although I don't know how much they did in that, Greyhound, the 800, which we've covered, the Battle of Lake Changjin, which we need to cover, Devotion, which we're planning on covering, Oppenheimer, which is upcoming, and also the soon-to-be adapted Frederick Forsyth novella, The Shepherd, which apparently John Travolta's involved with, but they're going to be doing the visual effects for it.
Interesting.
Yeah, the score comes from Trevor Rabin, who is probably best known for, again, a spate of big 90s movies where he did the score for movies like Con Air, Armageddon, Enemy of the State, Deep Blue Sea, Gone in 60 Seconds, National Treasure, The Great Raid, National Treasure 2, and 5 Days of War, which is a Val Kilmer-led movie about the Russian-Georgian War.
Yeah, I remember
Back in
when that came out.
2008,
Yeah,
which looks great. I'd like to cover that one. That'd be a good one.
it would be good.
So the film was filmed in the UK with a lot of the Escadrille aerodrome being filmed at RAF Halton. Just to give an idea of how much Double Negative did on the visual effects side of things, they have a little write-up on their actual website, which says visual effects shots make up approximately 50 minutes of Flyboys, and Double Negative's work covers 740 plus shots, including
Wow.
CG models of period aircraft, animation, CG environments, and matte background paintings. So you can see just how much visual effects stuff went into this film.
A lot.
Budget was about $60 million, with
Incredible.
a return of just under 18 million. So it was actually on a couple of the biggest flop of
Huge
2016
flop.
lists.
Huge flop.
Apparently, no studio would fund the production,
I wonder
according to
why.
numerous sources
You've
online.
seen the fucking film. Well, that's the first F-bomb. Christ. We said on
16
Twitter.
minutes, 33
Is it
seconds.
16 minutes in?
There we go.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
There we go.
That's amazing. You've gotten this far. I had to time it. I promised people I would time it. So
Maybe I'll
it
edit in
was
a big
it was
siren or
financed.
something.
The F-bomb siren. So as I say, no studios would back the film, and it was mostly funded by a group of filmmakers and investors led by Dean Devlin. And it's a huge budget for an independent film. What is essentially
Massive.
an independent film.
Yeah.
And just to round out the production side of things, we have to talk about the controversy around the historical consultant for the film.
Yeah.
So Jack Livesey was the historical advisor to the production, and he was associated with Imperial War Museum, Duxford, was a curatorial assistant there, I believe, for a number of years, up until 2006, when he was convicted of benefit fraud.
Wow.
Yeah, £30,000 worth, apparently.
Blimey.
But around this case, there was research done into his background, and it was found that he'd claimed to be a member of two para who had served in Northern Ireland and the Falklands, and that he'd won a military medal. And it turned out that none of that was true. He'd been in the Army Catering Corps for a number of years, but had never been to the Falklands, never been in two para. So this was quite a shock. And he'd had credits on documentaries including Death and Destruction in the Falaise Gap, Battlefield Detectives. He was an advisor on the BBC documentary D-Day to Berlin. And obviously he was the advisor on Flyboys. And he also claimed to have worked on Band of Brothers and Saving Private Ryan, which we don't believe he actually was associated with.
Right, okay.
So he was outed as a bit of a what I suppose
Walter
someone
Mitty.
would call a Walt. Yeah, so it's a little bit of stolen valor, although he did serve, but not as how he claimed to get into.
I always wonder why they claim to win medals when it's so easy to look it up.
Yeah,
I
it
always
really
wonder
is.
that.
The Gazette exists. It's
exactly.
public record, literally. Weirdly, it seems that his area of expertise for what they are was actually armored vehicles, not aircraft. So probably not the best historical
Well, he got it
advisor
fucking
for the
wrong
movie.
because there's tanks in this, and it's too early. If it's 1916 and the Germans are trying to cross the Meuse into Paris, Mark I tanks have not yet been used in action. It's not July 1st
captured
yet.
and
so why the heck are they in the movie? Why the heck are they in no man's land, my guy? If you're gonna lie, at least lie well. Show your working, my dude. Oh.
And one last little tidbit for everyone: James Franco apparently earned his pilot's license in preparation for the film, and filmed a number of airborne sequences, reaction shots, basically in cockpit shots. Apparently, all of the actors did this. All the principal cast recorded airborne reaction shots, but only Franco's were used. So, not sure what the problem was with everyone else's. Perhaps they were just they weren't very good. Perhaps they weren't quite up to the caliber of Robert De Niro's "I'm driving fast" face. Perhaps
Maybe not. Maybe not.
Yeah.
I also have a small link to the movie this week, which is a rare
thing.
Don't you? It's a very small link. So I used to be in a World War I reenactment group. I think I've mentioned it a couple of times on the pod before. And just around the time I actually joined that group, I think it was around the time the movie had either finished production or it had just been released in the UK. I don't think it was released in the UK till 2007. So the story goes that we used to do, and we did it a few times. I did it with them too. And we used to do a air show event at the Shuttleworth Historical Aircraft Collection. They've got an airfield, and they've got some of the oldest aircraft, like flyable aircraft in the world. There, it's really great. If you can go, please go. It's fantastic.
I've always wanted to.
Yeah, it's really, really great. We used to do a little show there for them, and the story goes. If any of my friends are listening, please, enlighten us further, or message me, and I'll get it on the Twitter. That apparently we got given this Newport, I think it's a Newport 12, two-seater observation aircraft. Right. There was a model used for this, a scale model, like 1/1 scale, like 1/2 scale. I can't remember. A while ago now, about 10 years ago. And yeah, we got given it in lieu of payment for a gig, for a show. And it was used in the film Flyboys. So we used to do a little sort of presentation in the aircraft. And it was all a little bit Blackadder, but there was a serious message to it. And I used to do the one of the roles in that little thing. I'll try and dig out some photos for the Twitter. And that apparently was used in the movie Flyboys. So that's my very small connection to that film. But yeah.
Wow, cool.
Yeah. And but we all hated the film. Like at the time, we thought it was pants then. Thought it was bloody pants now.
Did you see it in cinemas?
I got it on DVD, rented it.
Okay.
At the time, so I was like, oh, I know that a plane from that movie, and I watched it. Didn't like it at the time. I don't think I've seen it since it came out, and I thoroughly dislike it now.
I hadn't seen it.
Matt, you poor summer child.
I hadn't seen it, and I suggested we do it.
This is Matt's doing this week. Usually, I suggest
on me this week. Yeah. And on that note, I think it's time for a retro review. And this week we have one from the San Francisco Chronicle from the 22nd of September 2006. Flyboys is Tony Bill's shot at a ripping old-school adventure about World War I pilots. But besides some fine dogfight sequences...
Sorry.
But besides some fine dogfight sequences... Let me do that again. But besides some fine dogfight sequences, it often feels threadbare, just an exercise in recycling. The filmmaker's heavy reliance on prefabricated parts makes the movie feel long. It could easily have ended after the epic battle sequence in which the Lafayette Flyers pursue a German dirigible. Definitely agree. The film is 2 hours 18 minutes long, and my God, can you feel every minute of that tick by?
You really feel it. Yeah. That's a fair review. I do think that's fair. I know it wasn't reviewed quite positively at the time anyway, from what I remember. I remember seeing adverts for it. I remember seeing like print ads.
I think The Guardian called it perfectly workmanlike.
Yeah, I kind of get that as well.
That was their brief review. Yeah.
It's not for me. We'll talk more about the pacing later on, but it does definitely overstay its welcome by probably 40 minutes to half hour. And I haven't felt that way on the show for a long time.
No, I know.
Even with like the rubbish we did in Merc Month, some of the rubbish we did there, didn't feel like Universal Soldier 1970, sorry, didn't feel like overly long.
Pacing compared to this.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what's bizarre to me. You spend 60 million. You hire in some talent. The guy that wrote this wrote The Sting, for God's sake. Like, yeah,
exactly.
So it's not like the guy can't write, but it just feels like this is everyone's first go at doing a military movie, and they haven't necessarily maybe watched enough of the famous ones to sort of get the pacing, get the way dialogue should work. We'll talk about it later because I've got a lot to cover in my final thoughts.
I'm sure we will. Let's get the opinion of some of our listeners, shall we? With the one-word reviews. So, Ben Yarnell says turgid. Eamon says fiction. JD says shovel. Darren Skerritt says CGI fest, all one word, of course. Tim Hamilton said fun. Mark C said merde. Peter Lyon said pantload, all one word. John Adams said garbage. Dave Gerard said CGY. Hinkakuchi said stalled. And David Glynn said shite. We had a lot of those. We had a lot of shites.
We did. I think
there's some consensus.
There is a consensus, yeah. And as with the Ronin one, I mean, thanks everyone for your input again for another nice selection there. But they were coming in thick and fast, and I don't think at the top point of me putting up the one-word review, I think Matt had just finished the movie, so it was very funny to like see them coming in. And
Rob watched it in two parts.
I couldn't do it in one go.
I did leave some spoilers for you as well in voice notes. I know.
I apologize. I already knew what happened anyway, but it was was like reopening an old wound. This film, I was just like, oh God, what have I done? You know. But it's just. I got to a point in the movie where I just was looking at my phone too much, and I was like, no, I can't do this. And then I go back to it, and I just pulled my phone up again, and I was like, because TikTok memes were way more interesting than what was going on screen. And I was like,
Yeah, my dad
oh,
came in and he was like, "What are you watching?" I was like, "Oh, just this film." And he said, "What's it like?" I said, "Oh, it's a tough
Dad, do
one.
yourself a
It's a tough one."
favor, Mr. Moss,
Yeah,
do yourself a favor, go back to whatever you were doing before. It's
yeah,
100% more enjoyable.
yeah.
Even if it was putting nails in your own eyeballs, you'd get far more enjoyment out
Hacking
of
your own
that.
hand off with a shovel.
Yeah.
On
Yeah.
that note, let's move on to the alley tally and talk about some of the things that the film did well.
Did okay at. Yeah, I'll give it that.
Yeah, let's go with that.
It's time for Alley Tally on Fighting on Film.
So, Rob, it's the alley tally where we pick our favorite bits of kit, things that are cool from the film, equipment, uniforms. What have you got? What do you think this week?
So my little favorite thing, and I do think it's cool because it's referenced later on in another James Franco film. I like the MLE. Was it Melee? How do you say that as a weapons historian?
It's
You should
short for
know.
Medel. It's the
Medell.
French. Yeah, short for Medel.
So it's this
So
little
it's
sort of.
Model 1892.
That's it. Yeah, a revolver used by James Franco. It's given to him earlier on in the film, and he uses it to dispatch the Black Falcon near the end of the movie. Spoiler alert, everyone. He uses it to
Fucking hell,
dispatch.
that bit's that's
Yeah,
insane. That
it's
part of the film.
oh God. Yeah,
We'll talk about that, I'm sure. But Jesus,
yeah. It's just oh my God. Yeah. I mean, although I did think, caveat that quickly, I thought he was going to let him go because he let him go earlier on, and if he'd have let him go, I think I
no,
would
he
have thought
didn't.
this.
He didn't let him go earlier on.
He did, didn't he
That was
not?
the other dude.
Oh,
That was the other dude.
everyone looks the bloody same when they've got their
There was
flying
two.
helmets
Right.
on.
Okay. Before we actually move on to your point, so there was two German pilots that were introduced to the Black Falcon, the Red Baron.
Yeah,
He was in a black Fokker
Fokker D1. Yeah,
DR1. Yeah. And there was another who was like introduced as a more chivalric,
oh yeah. Sorry,
a
no, you are right.
better type of German, and he does come up behind him because he spared him earlier, and
Yeah,
it's like a chivalry thing. But yeah,
yeah.
the Black Falcon's a baddie through and through.
God. He's barely a villain in this.
He machine guns one of the pilots on the ground,
That's it. Yeah.
which I don't know whether that ever happened
Oh, I
in
don't
reality.
know. It was quite funny though, because when the guy turns around and he realizes he's going to get machine gunned, I howled with laughter. Anyway, getting back to my alley tally point. So I like the fact that that revolver that is given to Frank and he uses it at the end, it comes back up in the movie This Is the End, where I think it's like a post-apocalyptic movie.
Yeah,
And he brings it up and he's got, I think it's like the only weapon they have to defend themselves
because it's
against.
playing themselves, aren't they?
They're playing themselves, and he goes, "Oh, this is the gun I kept from Flyboys." So I think that's a nice little movie reference that you wouldn't expect. But I like the fact that most of the kit that I saw that was on display looked right. Like the French have
Passable,
lapels,
yeah.
the Germans have gevers, the trenches didn't look too shabby from the air.
They didn't actually, yeah.
Like the all like the setup of their like little airfield.
The guns are pretty
good.
good in this film.
Yeah,
Whoever was
guns,
the armorer
Maxims.
in this, I couldn't find it on the list.
Oh, shame.
Did a pretty good job.
I couldn't remember if anyone that we knew at the time worked on it. I don't think so anyway. No. Yeah, I know. It's
You're right. The Gevers, the MG08 on the sled.
Yeah, that was nice. Yeah.
The French trench looked pretty good. Some of the Germans were wearing Pickelhaubes, which some people online complained about, but the film's set in summer 1916. Kind of they're only just coming in,
but they've got the covers
be a transitional thing.
So it's not like they're wearing them without covers, like it's it's summer 1914. They've got the covers on everything like that. I've seen some guys or some evidence that they're seen later on in the war, but I think maybe it's just some guys are holding on to them still. There's definitely pictures of lads who've captured them on the
That's
first.
definitely not my biggest problem with the film. Put it that
No,
way.
it's not. I know it's not. I'm just saying, like, there are pictures of lads who captured them on the first day of the Somme as well. So
Yeah,
there's definitely there.
they were phasing them through. It's like anything
Yeah,
else.
exactly.
In terms of other firearms, we got Vickers aircraft machine guns, pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a few little scenes with those where there's a scene where they're checking belts. I think Franco's character and Eugene are sat and they're checking belts, and Franco pulls out some rounds and says, "Got to check these belts because this round's bent or damaged."
Yeah.
It's probably been
And then in
damaged,
the next
going through a
scene, one of them has a
belt feeding
jam.
machine.
Shock horror.
I know, but I thought that scene might be in like a nice little nod to Dawn Patrol, where there's a scene where
Oh
two of the
yeah.
characters are checking belts in that. But again, back to that like pacing and feel of the film. That scene's so rushed; it cuts away so fast because they're called away on a scramble.
Yeah.
And
Everything
it just
about that.
curtails that conversation.
Yeah. Everything. I feel like the training is handled in a montage where it really shouldn't have been. Like the
Yeah,
first hour of this movie should have been them learning to become pilots, and the second,
well, it
maybe
kind of was.
it kind of was, but
Or
it
it
was
felt
too.
like
It
it.
felt too quick, and that's a shame because this is where my alley tally thing comes in. Everything, most of the things that I've seen, at least on screen, for like mise en scène, where the money's been spent, your setting, your production design is great. It's really well thought out.
Yeah.
But then it's how it's used. You've got all this training montage and it's just over in like 20 minutes. And I don't buy them not being flyers 10 minutes ago. And then they can fly these planes perfectly fine. None of them have any real issues.
Yeah.
I just don't buy it well enough.
I liked the montage. I thought it was one of the better paced parts of the film. So we kind of disagree a little bit there, which is, novel.
I think it's too quick.
Yeah, I think it's okay. Well, perhaps I thought it was okay before the other 2/3 of the film followed it, and that kind of dragged out.
Yeah.
But I feel like they covered a lot of ground with it. They covered like balance. They covered the machine gun training simulator setup they had. I've seen photographs where they did
too.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was obviously something
but that's
that had
why
been
for me it felt rushed because I
influenced.
as someone who's watching this movie, I try and sit down every time I watch a movie for this show and think, right, I don't know anything about this period. Teach me something, show me something. And I think, oh, okay, learning to fly a biplane in 1916 when planes have only been around for just over a decade properly at this point.
Yeah.
I want to know, like, how do you go from a civilian to pilot? Like, it just happened too quickly for me.
Of course, it's supposed to be spread out over a
few
months.
Yeah,
weeks of training, but
it rattles through that bit too quick.
I liked the way that they showed the progression. They taught them how to fly, then they taught them how to like shoot, and then they taught them how to dogfight. In theory, it's just if only just for like John Renault going daka 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 while doing hand movements.
Yeah, that was
great.
Yeah. But anyway, back
in
to
terms in terms of alley kit, so the Vickers get a couple of cool scenes where there's a bit where Cassidy hands out hammers. That guy just hands stuff out like revolvers and hammers.
Yeah,
it's like here's a hammer for sorting out your Vickers gun. Here's a revolver for offing yourself when you're on fire.
Yeah.
He's a bundle of laughs.
Yeah.
But it's the hammer is like the hammer that the dude in Shawshank Redemption got for chipping his way out of his cell. It's like the least helpful thing to be in the air with.
It's Fisher Price, my first hammer, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like it's a very small like tack hammer where and James Franco is like whacking the charging handle, and that's not how you clear a jam on a Vickers. Like if you get a stoppage on a Vickers, there's drills. And Rich Fisher over the Vickers Machine Gun Collection and Research Association, who we've had on the show, great friend of ours, will tell you all about in great detail. But we didn't get any of the real nuance of this is how many rounds we've got in the aircraft. This is how we might reload the gun if we need to. There was no bit in that montage where they went, well, if you have a stoppage, rack it, pull the belt through,
Yeah.
rack it,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of
I get what
thing.
you mean.
But yeah, the bit where he was hitting it with a hammer, I was just like, oh, Richard,
Just funny.
Richard, hate this.
It's just
Hate
funny to
this.
me. Yeah. But
No, it is.
jumping off of that though, I do think the amount of biplanes it shows is nice. You know, like 19 Newport
I agree.
17s.
Just going to agree and say that the fact that they showed not one but two types of heavy bomber, which is something that no one
Yeah.
ever really thinks about when they think of World War II aviation and that sort of thing, was quite nice. You know, showing that Gotha and the Hadley
Yeah,
Page.
love a Gotha. Huge thing. Yeah. Great. And a Hadley
We
Page,
just don't like
No, you don't
the
see it.
general public don't think about
No.
big strategic bomber type stuff in World War One. They think that's a World War II thing.
Mhm.
And I thought that was an interesting inclusion. It made for a nice set piece.
It did. Yeah. But the Zeppelin
yeah,
bit,
as you were
I
going to
think, is a
mention,
bit. Yeah, no, I just like the fact that they show a lot of those biplanes. You know, care's obviously been taken to get them right and show them in the air well as they can for 2006 CGI. But I think then it falls apart a little bit where you've got the Germans all in red Fokker DR1s and the Black
Yeah.
Falcon in the black coloured one, where I'm just like, do you think we're stupid? Like as an audience? Like,
Yeah.
because the Red Baron flew a red plane in the First World War, that means every German
They all flew
aircraft
one.
was a red plane.
Yeah.
No, like it's just wrong. And I'm like, we as an audience know what these Newport 17s that are being flown by our lead characters look like, right? You've shown us them a lot. We would know.
Have that nice shot where they land and come through the fog.
Yeah, exactly. We would
that's
know on
a really
screen
nice shot.
who's attacking who. You don't have to have them all as the Red Baron type aircraft. I think this movie not.
But how do we know they're evil if they're not red?
Exactly.
And how do we not know that they're super evil when they're black?
Oh God, yeah, exactly. No, I could totally get what you mean. But it's one of the first times in the movie where I thought, right, this is the movie treats its audience with contempt. It doesn't think you're smart enough to realize that. As an audience member, if the Germans planes aren't red or black, then oh my God, what are they? It just falls apart there for me.
Yeah, I know. And obviously some of the depictions of what they're doing in the air is a little bit off. I don't think that some of the acrobatics seemed a little overdone.
It's for the film, isn't it? You know,
we'll probably talk about this in favorite scenes because some of the set pieces are good, but they're a little overblown.
Good, but there's too many of them. I don't say that about films rarely. There's too many big set pieces. Yeah, I will, as we say, we will get into this later. But as far as Ali Tally is concerned as well, as I mentioned it earlier, the Mark I British tank wreckage in no man's land makes no sense to me in the French sector. But I guess if you didn't know anything about First World War tanks, you might not know that.
Maybe they'd swapped sectors with a British division or something like that.
Maybe, it's just doing a lot of headcanon to make that work.
That was the least of my issues with that.
I know it was.
No Man's Land
I just felt I have utter contempt for this film. So it just sticks out to me. And then the Germans having tanks when the woman sees them doing their big push, which looked to be about 100 blokes. I'm like, that's a big push, is it? And they've got like 6 Mark I tanks that are badged up with their iron crosses on. And I'm like, oh, for God's sake, who's done that? There's no need. No need at all. Just annoys me in terms of that.
That sequence, again, well, I'm sure we will mention in a moment how unnecessary a lot of that is.
Really is.
A couple of things that I wanted to mention. There's a massive cognac flex in the film where...
there really is, yeah.
Where there's a 100-year-old vintage Remy Martin cognac, which I think in the film they call it a Louis the 15th, but that doesn't exist. It's like a Louis the 13th.
Right.
And that is a nice scene, but it's, again, so rushed. There's a sequence. So just to go back a little bit, Eugene's character has been accepted into the squadron. And there's a little bit of pushback in terms of his race from the rich character. I've forgotten his name.
Briggs.
Briggs, thank you. So there's been a little bit of pushback from Briggs because he doesn't want to be in the same billet as someone who would be his servant back home. And Eugene obviously later saves his life in air-to-air combat.
Mm-hmm.
And as a olive branch, Briggs brings in his 100-year-old vintage bottle of cognac and says, "I'm sorry for being an arse. Thank you for saving my life. Let's have a drink." And they sit down, have a drink, they have a chat, and it's a good scene. Two competent actors doing well with a scene. A rare scene in this film where they're
But the
given
movie
something
can't
that
have
doesn't
that. The
involve
movie
James
cannot
Franco.
have that because it cuts away from
Oh, I know.
before they can
I know.
even
This
have
is my point too.
discussion.
They move away from it really quick, and it's
Yeah.
a shame. What else is in here? There's a bit where someone says 9mm Spandaus, which incorrect. It's 10.92. I gotta do it, Rob. I gotta do it. I've
Matt's
got
history. Matt's firearms
A little bit.
historian. Profession will not let that slide.
coming through, isn't it?
Yeah,
Coming
yeah.
through. Oh, and Franco had his fingers in the wrong place on the Vickers.
Oh, did he? I didn't notice that.
He had them inside the spade grips rather than his index finger over the top on the top bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone else in that sequence in the little trainer, where they're in the little wooden aircraft thing being pushed up and down against targets and stuff, they're all got the correct finger placement on the gun. Mm-hmm.
Maybe it could just be showing him as
James wasn't listening in the briefing.
Being a bit of an inept farmhand. Maybe he's doing a little bit of method acting there. Maybe.
But before we move away from the alley tally, we're going to bring back a fan favorite of at least two people I've seen comment on it. It's the trope tally, Rob. We're bringing it back.
Hey.
Because there's a few in this.
Christ.
Yeah. So we had the train send off trope where one of the guys is waved off by his fiance,
his better half,
chases after him on the platform. We had the grouchy "all my friends are dead" dude, Cassidy, which is the classic setup of that kind of character. We had the rich, arrogant dude with daddy issues.
Yeah.
We had Franco's relief when the girl he fancies isn't a prostitute.
Mm-hmm. She's a real person.
Followed by Franco's relief when he realizes that those kids aren't hers. It's palpable. It's palpable.
I know, it's
you
so
can see
weird.
on his face.
It's so thank Christ.
It's like, oh my God, I thought I was going to have to fall in love with a prostitute then.
Yeah.
I thought, oh God. He's all happy when the madam.
My French pilot's money won't hardly cover these three children. Thank God.
It's so bad.
I know.
I was literally dumbfounded.
The one trope I hate the most, and I hate it, and me and Matt were talking about this earlier, is in fiction movies where they give you the text on the screen of what happened to them afterwards.
Yeah.
I can't stand it, especially in fiction films.
When the characters aren't real. I don't need to know what their lives did after this.
Yeah. There's certain movies that have done it well.
And if you don't know, it makes you think it's real. And it does say at the beginning of the film, doesn't it, that this is based on the true story.
Yeah. I hate that
Not
as well.
a true story.
I hate
the true story.
In
Helvetica.
It's a Helvetica font. Yeah, it's like choose any other fucking font. It dates it horrendously.
It could have been.
It makes it look like makes it look like it's a placeholder. That's what I hate about it.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah.
And then the only film that I know that does it well is at the end of National Lampoon's Animal House, where they fit more jokes in. So that there's a character who's in the army cadet, the American version of the army cadets, and they say at the end, "Oh, he was fragged by his men in Vietnam." And then they say that the character that John Belushi played went on to be political advisor to one of the presidents.
Was it Bush or something? Yeah.
But they used it as a trope, but then they fitted more jokes in. But when it does it and this guy went on to he never flew again, I'm like, well, it doesn't fucking exist, so why do I care?
Well, of course he never flew again because he never existed in the first place.
He didn't exist in the first place. And then the thing that annoyed me the most was Eugene Bullard, the character of their Eugene character, played by Abdul Salis. That's your opportunity to go. However, the real Eugene Bullard, was one of the first African American pilots to fly fighter aircraft or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's your opportunity to do more. But the film doesn't want to do more. It just wants to.
Well, no, they gave Eugene Skinner a completely different backstory. Like he
Mhm.
joined the American army and he wasn't allowed to fly, and then he became an airmail pilot, which isn't that's
that
not what
chap
Bullard did.
in the real world. That chap is so interesting because he goes on to fight for the French
Fascinating.
at the start of the Second World War.
Yes.
And like that, a film about him would be.
He was
incredible.
a drummer in nightclubs. He ran his own gym. He
Could you
knew
imagine
Louis
a biopic
Armstrong.
about that guy? You wouldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, God.
And that's what annoys me about films like this.
This film is a waste of money. They could have made a Eugene Bullard film.
That's the tagline for this episode, folks. This film is a waste of money. And it is. Unfortunately, it is.
That's piss away 60 mil.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's just, it's weak. All
How
right,
to
let me finish the trope tally, Rob.
Quick.
We've got a couple more.
Yeah.
Religious dude being religious, singing hymns in dogfights.
Yeah.
Not firing when you have a clear shot just to prolong the dogfight.
Yep.
Yeah. Celebrating and then being shot down in the moment of celebrating.
Yeah, that was funny.
Mortally wounded, noble sacrifice.
Yeah, crikey. Yeah. When he flies into the Zeppelin.
He does. Yeah. That's it for the trope tally this week, guys. And I'm so glad we could bring it back.
Can I put in my own Flyboys trope?
Of course.
Every time, and I sent Matt a meme of it because I couldn't explain what I meant, but I'll try my best for the show. Every time that you see like James Franco in his cockpit turning to his friend and giving like a half-mouth smile, if you see it one time in the film, you see it about 50 times, and I wanted to reach into the screen and grab him out of that cockpit and just.
Can we make our own version of that Nick Cage and
oh God,
thing
just like
where it's
so boring.
Where it's the two of them smiling at one another, reaction shots.
I know what they mean. It's from the film you're talking about. It's the
film where he's a Nick Cage superfan.
The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent that I watched a few weeks ago. Yeah, didn't enjoy it. Anyway, no, it's a meme from that.
That's not staying in the episode, Rob. Like this is just us chatting about this point. But yeah,
the meme where they're both looking at each other and it's Pedro Pascal and Nick Cage.
Pedro Pascal. There you
go. Yeah. It could be that. It's hilarious. He just does a lot of like needless grinning in this film. It's like if he can't.
That's James Franco though.
Oh God, yeah. He's woefully miscast in this movie. There's a sea of actors who were around the same age at the time.
Literally anyone could have done better.
So maybe we should move into
favorite scenes,
quote unquote favorite scenes. Hello, Robbie here. Did you know you can support the podcast on Patreon? Join the supporting cast today and gain access to exclusive perks, such as discount codes, our monthly Patreon film votes, and the chance to get exclusive merchandise before anyone else. Search Fighting on Film on Patreon or find the link on our website. Thank you. Now back to the show. So I already feel like we've eaten up a lot of runtime today, going off on tangents, but I think maybe this week it won't be.
Have you never listened to an episode of Fighting on Film?
Yeah, I know, right? I think we've been fairer to this movie at the moment than we did with Wind Talkers, to be fair. I don't think
give it time. Give it time.
Jesus, yeah. My quote-unquote favourite scene is the bit. So it's halfway through the movie, and it is genuinely about halfway through. They have a dogfight.
At exactly 1 hour, 8 minutes.
Probably is, yeah. So a guy gets his plane's damaged, and he has to down it in no man's land between the French German trenches, and the plane flips, and as it flips, he gets flung out, and then his arm gets caught, or his hand gets caught underneath.
Laugh, but yeah,
it's hilarious. His hand gets caught underneath the wing of the biplane of the Newport.
Quite well shot, that bit.
It looks good. This is
the way it crashes is great.
Yeah, everything looks okay. It's just the acting, the script, the characters, everything else is just rubbish.
Just everything else that matters.
Exactly. So you got Franco circling and like looking at him like what's going on, somehow avoiding all the anti-aircraft fire and machine guns and whatever. So his mate's trying to get his hand free. And it reminded me, and if you know the episode, guys, you'll know what I'm talking about, guys and girls. The episode of The Simpsons where Homer's trying to get a free can of Buzz Cola from the vending machine, and he reaches up and he's holding it, and he gets his arm caught, and the fire brigades come and help him, and they go, Mr. Simpson, are you just holding on to the can?
Everyone's watching, yeah.
And everyone's watching, and they laugh at
vending
him.
Machine.
And he lets go, and he he's hurt his arm, but he's fine. Reminded me of that, where I'm like, You have your hand in a flying glove. Release your hand from the flying glove, you will be fine. Or, shock horror, dig around your hand that's in mud, and you will free your hand, and you'll be fine. Right? Because
let's unpack that scene, Bob.
I'm not even at the bit I hate the most. Yeah.
I know. Let's unpack it. Let's get there. So, plane crashes. Dude's thrown out of the cockpit. His arm's trapped. It's not even his arm, it's his wrist. Literally just a hand. Franco circles and decides, I need to land.
I've got to help him. I need to
save
help him.
my friend.
I need to land. Land.
He's going to land. He doesn't even ditch. He lands. We don't see him land, but we know he lands because he's on foot. Anyway, so
we do see him land. We don't see him land, but we see the plane on a perfectly little ridge line.
We see the plane dip behind the ridge and then cut to him out of the plane, I think. But yeah.
No, there was a genuine shot of him looking over the battle when he's got out of his plane.
Yeah, oh no, totally there is. Like he does overlook no man's land, which you would think tactically, like a position like that would be really handy for either side to hold.
Spotting artillery or something.
You know, and
not one German.
The rolling plains of France are known for their tall ridges.
Good God. It's just contempt for the audience again.
How does he land in no man's land?
Without being seen.
Shell craters everywhere. How does he not get shot down?
And problem is, I will let you finish, man. The problem is I can suspend belief for these movies. I know we've really tried hard on this podcast to go, right, we know some things might not be 100% accurate, but it's entertainment and it's a movie. But when you genuinely just dislike something from the get-go, it's very hard to let these things go.
You can't forgive it, certain things,
Yeah. And this is just it's just seen as just...
So as soon as the dude crashes, a massive gun battle erupts in which both sides start blazing away at one another. And then Franco lands, runs through no man's land, just dodging bullets. Gets to the dude, and he's like, I'll get you out, don't worry. Looks at the guy, gives him a bit of a pull, tries to push the fuselage of the aircraft upwards. Can't do it. It's too heavy. That canvas aircraft is too
French
heavy.
chap who runs out and tries to help.
Two of them.
Gunned down.
One gets gunned down instantly.
Yeah.
Second one arrives to help. Tries to lift the airplane again. Gets shot. But thankfully, what's he carrying?
A shovel.
Schrodinger's
entrenching tool.
And we get almost like a prequel to the film where Franco later cuts off his own hand because he's trapped.
Yeah.
But in this situation, he decides that the best way to use that shovel to get his friend free from the aircraft's wreckage is to cut his fucking hand off with one blow.
Just dig him out. The one
he does try.
Thing,
to his credit, Franco does try and dig him out, but not for long.
I tried to put
how he didn't manage to do that, I don't know.
No, I tried to put a little bit of headcanon on the cutting of his hand, because I was like, well, chaps did used to sharpen the edges of their shovels for trench fighting and what have you, and I was like, maybe. And then I tried to play the film's advocate.
The wrist is quite a strong bone, though, isn't it?
I know. I was so angry.
If it had been fingers, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he's just he's got a solid connection, I guess.
He got a cracking connection.
I tried to call the movie's bluff, because obviously knowing what I now know about the military advisor, I was like, I bet that's the wrong entrenching tool. I was so enraged. I was like, I bet that's the wrong one. And I looked it up.
See whether it's French.
And it's a French entrenching tool.
Oh,
yeah.
Shame.
So I was like, curse your film. It's like, I can't even be angry about that.
Two for Flyboys. Zeppelins did bomb Paris, and it was the right entrenching tool.
Exactly, yeah. I'm gonna bring on some subs in the final thoughts, and we'll win.
I bet you are.
Anyway, but it's just complete bollocks. I'm just like, come on. At this point in the movie, I'm like, how many set pieces do you want? Right?
I thought they were just going to overfly like No Man's Land.
I thought they were.
I really didn't think they were going to land. I was like, what the?
I thought that character would just be written out there.
Yeah, I thought Mortar might get him or something like that.
Yeah. But funny how that character is the CEO of the production company who made the film. funny he
It is
survives,
funny.
isn't
It's
it?
funny how he comes back later on with a hook, isn't it?
Very interesting that he stays in it. It's
And
my
he-
film, and I'm going to stay in it.
He saves the day a little
Yeah,
bit.
that's it.
And doesn't die in the end.
God.
Comes back with a hook, no less.
Yep. And he can fly his plane
which
perfectly fine.
I believe, if I remember rightly, there were some pilots that were amputees.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember correctly, I could be mistaken there.
Yeah.
But the timeline, like the literal in-film timeline, is so confused.
Oh God, we haven't even
He
gotten to
recovered
that
from
yet.
that amputation and made himself a hook in about a week. It felt.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, absolutely fine.
Yeah. My favorite scenes are all the ones with the awful CGI line.
They are a bit bad, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So apparently the one of the Lafayette, I think it was it the Escadrille or was it
Escadrille, because there's the Lafayette Flying Corps, which were a subset
right.
who were actually American pilots, and then the Lafayette
and they
Escadrille,
had two lines, didn't they?
Yeah, and they had two lions, and there's a picture at the end they use, and they show you the lion, and it's like James Franco's fighting with a cuddly toy lion in one bit. It's quite funny.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the doll in American Sniper.
Yeah.
Another trope for the trope tally. On Cassidy's last mission, the line comes out and goes, "Arr," and like looks at him flying off.
I know. I was like, for fuck's sake, it's like Scooby Doo. Lafayette Escadrille.
One of your finest there, Rob. One of your finest. It's hard to pick a favorite scene, isn't it? I mean,
because I don't have any.
We're treated to James Franco learning French in real time for at least a third of the film.
It's painful. It's painful.
He again, he's out on a training mission. They have to land because they don't fill up the plane with enough petrol.
Yeah.
As you don't, and they crash, and he wakes up and he's in a brothel, and he meets this lovely lady, Lucienne, and they have a fantastic arc. Oh, it's one of the best subplots I've ever experienced.
It's so long. Drags.
So she's there in the brothel, and he can't speak a lick of French. She can't speak a lick of English.
You think you might have learned some phrases while you were training to be
he's been in France
pilot in
3 months now, yeah, and he hasn't bothered to learn it.
You mean you've learned nothing from Renault's character? You've learned no French from him whatsoever. Oh,
none.
Good Lord.
Your best friend, who you've been rooming with, speaks fluent French.
Oh no, you've learned nothing.
Haven't tried to get any even pidgin French down.
You haven't learned oui, non, le grand beer. Like, come on, it's just the basics. the British man, the American or British man on holiday basics. Come
on. So he encounters this woman who's tending to his wounds, and he assumes she's a prostitute because he would. She's in a brothel. She's a lady. She's a prostitute. But much to his relief later on, turns out she was just delivering some produce and took it upon herself to help.
Produce destitute.
Yeah. And tend his wounds. So then he goes and finds her. He goes and finds out where she lives, stalks her a bit, finds her house.
Bit weird.
A little bit. And they have a chat. He encounters the children that she's looking after. And he's like, oh shit, she's got kids. And then he's visibly relieved when he finds out that they're her nieces and nephews.
I should put it there.
Yeah, right. That's what he's thinking while she's showing him the photographs of their dead family. He's like, oh, thank God that they're these dead people's kids.
Ew.
And his face throughout that scene is completely inappropriate. It's just, he doesn't even carry sad well in that sequence.
He's just woefully miscast. At this point in his career, I know he's got kudos for playing James Dean a few years before. He's been like a high schooler in Freaks and Geeks, but he doesn't have enough range at this point in his career for me to carry the emotional weight of this movie. He either doing like a wry smile or just a blank expression. He does even when his friends die in the movie, he doesn't look bothered. I'm like, James, emote. Emote, for God's sake. Come on.
Tony Bills, they're like, for Christ's sake, James, emote.
Pieces of wood have better range in this movie.
Oh, God. So, yeah, he basically learns French in real time. And we're there with him every step of the way as he stumbles through basic French until the point they kiss and they have a chat. And I was just really disappointed that they tried to get in like the civilian cost price of the war, like civilians are being killed in this war, and they botched that sequence with him.
They do it better in the scene where the column of refugees get gunned down.
Yeah, but would the Germans have actually done that?
I'm not sure. Second World War, I mean, maybe. I can't say it didn't happen in the First World War. I'm no expert, but
no, I'm not either.
You know,
if anyone out there knows whether the Germans ever fired on civilian columns, do let us know. But anyway,
but it's just like that scene hits more emotionally than this woman who you're not really properly introduced to.
It's so brief. That in itself is brief.
I know. And then you get this.
Oh yes, the scenes with Lucienne are copious and numerous and lengthy. It comes to a culmination where the Germans make their big push that Rob mentioned earlier with the Mark 1 tanks that shouldn't have been there.
Oh Christ!
And James takes it on himself to fly his plane to go and rescue her. And he looks. There's a moment where he's visibly surprised that she says, "What about the enfant, the kids?" And he's like, "Oh shit, yeah, the kids." Completely forgot I need to also rescue the kids. So he takes the kids first.
Yeah.
And by this point, the Germans have arrived at the farm. You know, this massive push that the Germans have made, you know, in the summer of 1916 that isn't Verdun.
Sure thing.
And and he manages just to get there and spirit her out of the house, get her into the back of the suddenly 2-seater Newport.
And it was already a 2-seater. It already was.
No, it wasn't.
Was it not?
No, there's sequences where there's nothing behind him.
Is that a big continuity error? I didn't notice.
Might be. And you know why I know this, Rob? Because there's enough sequences in the film where bullet holes appear right behind the seats of the pilots.
Oh, okay.
With no repercussions.
Yeah.
Because those bullets would riddle the back.
There's a scene right at the end where Franco's plane is riddled. And I'm like, how one of them has not hit him?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm willing for this bloke to get a spinal injury, so they have to put him out of fucking misery. Good God.
So he rescues her. She's shot as they take off through the shoulder, and he's like, there's a very long sequence of...
I laughed so hard when she got shot. My brain had just turned off so much to every character that when she got shot, I howled with laughter.
Because it was predictable. It was predictable as well.
I'm like, she'll be fine. After I stopped, I had to pause, compose myself.
The bit where he shoots those two guys as they take off, though.
How? The angles are all wrong.
Yeah, I know. He was well out of the arc of fire for the Vickers. Anyway, so he takes her to the airfield, gets her first aid, and then there's at least 8 minutes worth of just him sat next to her while she's asleep. And it's supposed to
it's just creepy.
It's supposed to show he's worried and the passage of time, and will she make it to the morning? And there's a way of doing that much better than they did by showing all 8 minutes of him sat there.
Yeah.
Anyway, what grinds my gears about their relationship is he sends her off to Reims, and go on, Rob. I know you want to.
It's fucking Ren. I was like, you're serving in a French outfit, wearing a French uniform, having been taught by French people. The least you can do is learn a little bit of French. I know that the British call Eep wipers, and Albert they call Albert, and things like that. It's because they're cute British Tommies, right? They're not serving with the French, right? Most of them lads probably never even read a French word in their entire lives. But I can't buy that Franco's character, who's been trained up by Jean Reno for weeks and been under his command for months, wouldn't know the name. I'm sorry. I'll go on forever about it. Yeah. But it really annoyed me. And I'm like, she's not going to know where that is either.
Anyway, so they meet up in Reims. And he says, we'll meet in Paris after the war. Never see her again.
Never see her again.
And we've had we've had about 40 minutes
We've
of their
had 40
relationship,
minutes of her. Yeah. And it's
and
problem
then you
is,
never see her again.
her character is, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just
You
how
get
it's
that
handled.
emotional shot, which is like
Yeah.
exactly the same shot from Sleepy Hollow, like looking
Yeah.
down that street.
Yeah. And then they just write her out at the end with,
Yeah.
he went to Paris,
He
but
went
he
to
never
Paris, but
found her.
he never found her.
I'm not surprised. It's a huge
Oh
city.
no, I
They
really
didn't even have a
regret getting so
picture of her.
invested in their relationship now.
I want to see the sequel where just James Franco banging on doors till he tries to find her.
Like Taken. So yeah, that does drag the film a little bit, and I think the film would have been a lot better if they'd, made that a little bit.
This is my
more
whole
streamlined.
theory of people who haven't made war films before making their first war film and thinking you have to have a romantic subplot, or you have to do it the way that this movie does it. And I'm like, there are plenty of war movies with romantic subplots that aren't nearly as
Have some balls and
grating.
have her actually be a prostitute.
Yeah,
It's 2006.
And I know I'm not going to
Come on.
compare this to The Cruel Sea, but the way that the female characters in The Cruel Sea are treated,
Yeah,
like
a 50-year-old film.
yeah, exactly.
Does it better?
In an era where women were treated horrendously in film sometimes, and it's still happening. It was still happening in Flyboys in 2006, but we are.
And she's just there
gentlemen.
and she's written down on a piece of paper in English what she's like, I don't want to fall for you because I will worry about you. Please stop visiting me and the kids.
It's just it just drags.
She's given zero to work with in this film, and you can tell she's probably a decent actress.
It's a shame because she is a
wasted.
decent actress because she's gone on to do lots of really highly praised French film and TV, and it's a shame. And we might as well jump into final thoughts because we sort of have anyway, like we always do.
Can I just discuss my actual favorite scene?
Sorry, go on.
My favorite scene is where he rides a horse up and down in front of her and the kids.
Fucking hell.
For like 5 minutes.
Painful to watch.
Where he tries to explain that he's a cowboy.
Yeah, because the film
kids that have no idea what a cowboy is.
His backstory.
Yeah.
Christ, it's painful. Yeah. I hope that horse got paid a fat whack for being in this movie.
Yeah, probably.
I really do.
Yeah.
And that's my problem. Again, I was about to caveat into final scenes there that it's a shame that someone like Jennifer Decker, the biggest Western movie in her CV at the moment is Flyboys, and it's a shame that actors who are clearly way, way better than the script are in this. And this is where my first point in Final Thoughts this week comes in, is Franco, unfortunately, at this point of his career for me, one, he's miscast, and two, he just doesn't have the range, charisma, the emotion yet to be able to do this. He isn't interesting enough. No, the character just isn't interesting enough. He wants to fly because he saw some stock footage of
I like
biplanes.
that. That's one of the scenes I did actually like.
That's fine, right?
I thought that was a nice way of introducing some context, and I like the fact they had a narrator in the cinema.
Did you
reading
know that
the newsreel?
I thought it was funny because there's a clip of one of the 1920s First World War films in there, and I was like, "How's he watching that? It hasn't happened yet." Anyway,
isn't there tanks in it as well? When
tanks
there probably wouldn't have been tanks. Yeah.
There's a clip from Malins' Somme film, which wouldn't have even happened yet. Anyway,
Franco went on to fight in the Somme, so
over the Somme. Christ, yeah. So he's not interesting enough, but everyone else is. Everyone else is very interesting. They've actually got skin in the game. They want to prove things to their families. You know, the film should really have been about Eugene Bullard, because his story is so much more interesting. There's so much more to go over there. I would have kept Abdul Salis in the role, and I would have built the film around him, because there's so much more to go into there. You still could have Renault. You still could have had these flying sequences. You probably could cut a film about his character out of this.
Yeah.
But then this is where the issues come in. You know, he just isn't engaging enough, and I end up not caring about anybody because it's forcing me to care about Franco. I forgot who people were because everyone looks the same in their flying helmets, and all the planes look the same, and all the German planes look the same.
There's a couple of the background actors within that group, which there was a couple of times I was like, oh, is he alive?
Yeah,
I thought he'd
exactly.
been killed.
I'd forgot
And it
the
was someone
chap
else.
in No Man's Land was the same guy until he came with his hook for a hand.
Yeah.
And I was like, for God's sake.
Because there's a dude that has like battle stress and can't
Yeah.
fly for a
And I
while.
forgot
And then he
he'd
pops
even
up again at the end of the
right at the
film.
end. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, what? You've left him.
Yeah.
We haven't seen him for half an hour. I'd completely
No.
forgotten about that dude.
And there isn't, it's too long as well. It's probably 40 minutes too long. And I don't even, you could even just trim down some of the overly done CGI and you cut it down enough.
Yeah.
It doesn't know what its set piece is. It wants to have a big Zeppelin. It wants to have this thing in No Man's Land. It also wants to have a personal duel at the end with the Black Falcon. But he's not an interesting villain anyway.
Well, because you don't hear him speak.
No,
All we know
doesn't
is
have
he
any
shoots
weight
at
behind
civilians
him.
and he shoots at downed pilots.
Yeah,
And he's a
that's
bit of a
it.
dick.
Doesn't get any lines.
Yeah.
And it's such a, and I think this is where I get so angry, is that we've covered bad movies that are so bad they're good. This is just bad. And I think it's the most egregious waste of $60 million ever, because everything else in the movie, clearly as I said earlier, the production people have put effort in, the costume department have put
Mise en
effort in.
scene's great.
The mise en scène, the guys who did the CGI have worked overtime. For 2006, it really still holds up for me.
That's very true.
Really, really does. And you can see what they go on to do. They're probably some of the best at it in the business right now. But the script is just bad. The casting isn't great. Characters that should be developed aren't. And
Renault is totally wasted.
Renault's just wasted. He's just there. And he gets some horrible
lines. The scenes he's in are great. Like there's certain scenes where he actually manages to imbibe some oomph into them. But
yeah,
even he can't lift
he's
those.
going to do his best, isn't he?
Yeah.
And it's just
he's very well cast for the character as well. I think
this is a really weird misstep in Franco's career.
His character could have had a film of its own.
Could have, yeah.
Quite frankly,
the Lafayette Escadrille themselves are interesting. There's a 1958 film about them.
Yeah, there's a 28 film too.
No, I guess okay, fair enough.
Yeah, there's been a couple of films about them.
Right.
Thank God.
So
and they're an interesting unit, but
I mean, I'll let Matt go into his final
this
thoughts
film
now. But
does
I hate,
bring a lot of inconsistency, and a lot of people say that it's clouded. Let me say that again. A lot of people say that it's clouded the history of the Lafayette Escadrille because it's confused characters and taken influences from various places, and it hasn't represented like Bullard for one. But I completely agree. As we've said, there's some nice CGI, some nice flying shots. There's some decent cinematography in this. The mise en scène is good. We really need to put that on a t-shirt. I say that a lot, I know.
Yeah. Matt's mise en scène t-shirt. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's flat. It's overly long.
It's so flat. It's so long. Once you get an hour and a half in, you're like, right, we're the end now. Oh no, we've got to do this. Oh no, we've got to finish the mission we started off at this. We started at the start of the movie. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who fucking cares?
We need to bomb that. We need to bomb that.
We really need to bomb that ammo dump. Fucking hell,
and spend that budget.
When a movie is just bad, it grates and it's annoying. And to end my final thoughts, really, is I hated the movie in 2007 when I was 14, and I hate it now that I'm nearly 30. It hasn't changed in the 15 years. I thought I might have softened to it. I thought I might have, I've enjoyed some Franco movies since. I thought, I might like this one. No, just a dud, a right dud. I'd happily jam my biplane into the Zeppelin to stop watching.
Yeah. I can only agree, really. I mean, there's some nice visceral detail in the film, like people falling from cockpits, people being killed by machine gun fire rather than the plane just getting hit and spiraling off out of shot. And it shows the more visceral reality of air-to-air combat in World War One. I think. But there's films 30, 40, 50, 100 years ago that did exactly that.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not, that isn't groundbreaking. There are some nice moments, and I've talked about the one between Skinner and Briggs, and that is one of the genuinely nice moments of the film that could have been so much more, and was sadly wasted. And we touched on it a little bit, but I think they've made the Germans the baddies, and they're just the baddies. We aren't really told why they're the baddies. It's just hammered home that they're not good people.
Yeah.
Which
They're the faceless Germans to shoot at.
It's a little bit too black and white.
Trope
It's
in
got no
itself.
nuance. Yeah, it is. It's got no nuance. And I'll just conclude on how much I hate the ending of this film. So we have the bombing raid where the remains of the squadron go up to cover the bombing raid, and then we get some nice Hadley pages on a bombing run.
Mm-hmm.
The chap with the hook comes back. The dude with combat stress manages to pull it together and get back in the aircraft, and he's going to make his family proud because his family's got a long, military service
history.
Background. And yeah, exactly. And he saves the day a little bit. The hook dude saves the day a bit. Skinner saves the day a little bit. In turn, again, very formulaic. But they managed to bomb the depot, the ammunition dump. And you think, oh well, there you go. That they've done that. But you would think the Zeppelin battle would have been the big conclusion.
It feels like it.
Because that's the behemoth, to borrow the Battlefield 1 reference. And there is a little bit of conclusion in that sequence as Cassidy's arc is, ended by the noble sacrifice, and that adds further to Franco wanting to avenge him with, against the Black Falcon.
You could have just faded out over them flying back and shown and had those little what happened to them after the war bits, and that'd have been fine. It'd have been a fine ending.
They could have had. They take out the Zeppelin, and then there's a one-on-one fight between.
Yeah, in fact, you could just cut that in with it. The way the CGI is a bit seamless and doesn't really. Yeah. Doesn't really.
There's no need to have the air they're in. Them all return back to the airfield.
I'll do some stuff. Christ, do a fucking better job. Christ.
Oh my god, it's a hate edit.
Hate edit.
Where they go back to the airfield. There's conversation. They go back up and they have to do the last mission. Yeah. And it does feel like it adds an extra 20 minutes to the film that's unnecessary, because not only do they do that last mission where the bombing raid is successful, then they have the duel afterwards.
Yeah. Your patience with the film is just gone by that point.
It's gone by that point. It's shot. It's literally... The ending of it is astounding because Franco's wounded and we think, oh no, the Black Falcon's going to shoot him down. The Black Falcon pulls alongside him and he's like glaring at him. I'm going to toy with you a little bit kind of thing. And then kind of like Franco puts his tiller over and he kind of like pulls out of a little flip. And then the next shot of him is he's there with the pistol, the revolver, and he literally shoots the Black Falcon with the revolver. And the Black Falcon is suitably shocked. Yeah, suitably shocked and crashes in a fiery ball of flame, obviously.
Yeah.
And then the film concludes, and it's just like, you go, oh, okay, so he was okay, and he did a stupid, unlikely maneuver, and then we find out that there's going to be no conclusion to the 40 minutes of B plot that we experienced. I say experienced, I mean endured. And that's like a second kick within like 10 seconds of being the film's over at last.
Yeah. In the list of war movies we've really not enjoyed on the show, Wind Talkers is up there. But I think this might even be above Wind Talkers, because at least with Wind Talkers, there is
as much as everyone knows
enjoy.
I dislike Wind Talkers for the way it betrayed the Wind Talkers legacy. This has betrayed Bullard's legacy.
Oh, massively. Basically. Yeah, there's more interesting stories to be told about these people than what this movie served up in 2006. It's just a shame. It's a real shame. And I think that probably ends this week's review. I mean, we didn't enjoy it. We know a lot of the Final Film clan didn't. But as I say, you can't watch AAA titles every week. Sometimes you've got to go in the lower leagues. Enjoy it.
Some
people do.
Some of them, they might. The one-word reviews were positive, but
if you enjoyed it, let us know why. We'd love to know. But as I say, movie reviews, they're subjective. Don't forget to join us next week for another war movie review. Give us a like, a subscription, a follow, a review, a written review on Apple Pods would be lovely if you wouldn't mind.
Very helpful.
Helps the show a lot. And we'll catch you again next time. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye, guys.